Genetic diversity. Meiosis generates diversity, but it isn't the only thing that affects it. So this is part of 3.4.4, genetic diversity and adaptation. So from the specification it says, genetic diversity as the number of different alleles of genes in a population. Genetic diversity is a factor enabling natural selection to occur. So, similarities and differences in DNA result in genetic diversity. 1.8 million species on Earth have been identified, but there's an estimated total number of species between 5 million and 100 million, so we've not actually identified that many. Members of the same species differ. Nearly every one of 6.5 billion people alive, all humans, but they differ enough to be distinguished from each other, obviously, with the exception of identical twins. What makes us and other species similar and yet different? Proteins make organisms different, and DNA determines the variety of proteins that make up each organism. Similarities and differences between organisms due to variation in DNA. Differences in DNA lead to genetic diversity on Earth. So a gene is a section of DNA that codes for a particular polypeptide. Members of the same species have the same genes. For instance, all humans have the gene for blood group. But which blood group they actually have depends on the alleles of the gene they possess. So organisms differ in their alleles, not their genes. The greater number of alleles species possesses, the greater the genetic diversity. The greater the diversity, it's more likely species can adapt to environmental change. Therefore, it's more likely an individual possess characteristics suited to environmental conditions. Genetic diversity is reduced when species has fewer different alleles. The Refounder Effect. A few individuals colonise a new region, and a small fraction of the alleles are present. Alleles may not be representative of the larger population. The new population has less genetic diversity than the original population. The Refounder Effect is seen when volcanic islands rise out of the sea, and it gives rise to genetically distinct populations to the one left behind. New populations in time develop into separate species with fewer alleles, and they are less able to adapt to change. Genetic bottlenecks. The population suffers a dramatic drop in numbers, and a chance event like a volcanic eruption or interference by man like hunting. Few survivors possess the smaller variety of alleles than the original population, therefore there's less genetic diversity. These few survivors breed and re-establish, but the genetic diversity of the population remains restricted. So, as an example of a genetic bottleneck is in the elephant seals. The northern elephant seals were hunted by mankind until 1900s. 20 remain in the colony on the coast of Mexico. The population has since increased, but when they compare that with the population of the southern elephant seals, they show less genetic diversity, making it less likely that a population can adapt to change in their environment. What is genetic diversity? There can be different versions of a single gene, which are alleles. Alleles code for different versions of characteristics, like blonde hair or brown hair. Genetic diversity is the number of different alleles of genes in a species or population. A large number of different alleles in a population means there's a large variety of different characteristics and therefore high genetic diversity. Genetic diversity is important because if a population has low genetic diversity, it might not be able to adapt to a change in the environment, and the whole population could be wiped out by a single event, like a disease. Genetic diversity within a population can be increased by mutations in the DNA forming new alleles. Some of these can be advantageous while others lead to problems. Different alleles being introduced into a population when individuals from another population migrate into it and reproduce. This is known as gene flow. Genetic diversity is what allows natural selection to occur because some characteristics are more advantageous than others. A genetic bottleneck is an event that causes a big reduction in a population. For instance, when a large number of organisms within a population die before reproducing. This reduces the number of different alleles in the gene pool and so reduces genetic diversity. The survivors reproduce and a larger population is created from a few individuals. We said the example is the northern elephant seals, where they were hunted by humans in the late 1800s. Their population was reduced to about 50 seals, but when they reproduced to form about 170,000, the new population has smaller genetic diversity compared to southern elephant seals. The Refounder Effect. The Refounder Effect describes what happens when just a few organisms from a population start a new colony, and there are only a small number of different alleles in the initial gene pool. The frequency of each allele in the new colony might be different to the frequency of alleles in the original population. For example, an allele that was uncommon in the original population might be more common in the new colony. This may lead to more genetic disease. The Refounder Effect can occur as a result of migration, leading to geographical separation, or if a new colony is separated from the original population for another reason, such as religion. As an example, the Amish population of North America are all descended from a small number of Swiss who migrated there. The population shows little genetic diversity. They have remained isolated from the surrounding population due to their religious beliefs. So few new alleles have been introduced. The population has a remarkably high frequency of certain genetic disorders.